What is the strangest event you have seen or been a part of? Didn't happen to me, but my girlfriend's neighbor's house went up in flames, but when the fire truck came, it never stopped. It drove straight through the house and completely destroyed everything. Brakes just didn't work at the wrong time. Best way to fight fire: divide and conquer. Using the element of surprise. That fire never saw it coming. I've told this story before, but oh well. I was a junior in high school. I was walking with a friend to our 4th period class, when we noticed that the campus was littered with flyers. Which is slightly unusual. Sure. But nothing too weird. Right? It wasn't until a flyer smacked me in the face that we realized that they were falling from the sky. We looked up and, lo and behold, there's a flying contraption thing, like a lawn chair strapped to a fan with a paragliding sail. And astride it, circling above our campus, was a man, screaming about the apocalypse and the Matrix and abortion. Every few seconds he could reach into his backpack, grab a handful of flyers, and toss them down at the students now congregating in confusion. But the 4th or 5th time we watched him reach for his flyers, his hand went a little too far and caught on the large fan that was attached to the back of his DIY flying machine. Instantly we see a burst of red as his fingers are sliced off by the blades. He starts screaming and loses control of the machine, violently jerking back and forth until he flies directly into the chain link fence of the football field. Teachers began to usher students into class under threat of expulsion, and police showed up a few minutes later. The football team had to fan out shoulder to shoulder later that day to try to find the dude's severed fingers. Turns out crazy guy was a student's father. She never talked about it, and I haven't seen her since I graduated almost a decade ago. Still feel bad for her. Edit. Found an article. NSFL contains pictures of aborted fetuses. Abortion abolition Air Force loses 1 plane. Pilot loses fingers. Haha OMG. Warning. Article has graphic image. About a month ago I was eating at a very nice sushi restaurant in my city Austin, TX. And I had to go to the bathroom. I got up and walked in at exactly the same time as a guy at a table across the room. We walked in and there was only one urinal, so I beckoned him to go ahead as a kind gesture. He thanked me and I leaned against the wall and pulled out my phone to check messages Reddit, and the guy looks at me over his shoulder and says, "Wanna see something weird?" I think about it and say maybe. And he reaches his hands down his pants farther and fishes around for a second to pull out a live baby bunny. He then hands it to me while still peeing and says, "Here." I grabbed this rabbit and petted him, looking into his eyes thinking of so many different questions. How sanitary is your hand when you handed him to me? Why do you have a rabbit in your pants? Or any other question. But for some reason my brain decided to ask, "What's his name?" The guy looked at me confused and said Co or something. I don't remember, we got him today. I responded with, "That's a good name for a bunny." Well, I think I'm going to eat him in a few days. They taste great, he replied, as he zipped his pants up and started washing his hands. "You shouldn't eat bunnies. You should love them," blurted out of my mouth. The guy looked back at me like he was deep in thought, dried his hands on a towel and said, "Maybe I will." Then he smiled, took back the bunny and placed it in his pants and walked out. I like to think I saved that bunny, but he probably ate it. TL. DR. The oddest bathroom experience ever. The guy looks at me over his shoulder and says, "Wanna see something weird?" I think about it and say maybe. Dude. 9 times out of 10 that's probably gonna involve his penis. Car slams on its brakes on a busy 4-lane road. A woman jumps out and reaches into her backseat. Grabs what looks like a giant fake sunflower plant and swings it around her head. It seems like for a minute, but perhaps it was only 30 seconds. She throws the sunflower back in and jumps back in the car and speeds off. Me and 4 other people just stood there in disbelief at the entire sight. Just WTF. For a second she thought she had invented the flower copter. I can imagine her disappointment as she got back into her car again. With a slightly torn imagination. I know that feeling. Like when you do the helicopter dick and you don't take off. Wait. You've never taken off? His dick is just too small. My dick is tiny, but man, I take off every time. I was riding the DART Dallas public transportation train back home from work when I was 17. My first job. Working at a Boston market my third uncle managed. Anyway. It's about 10:30 at night and in my car. There are some odd characters. Business guy. With a coat folded over his briefcase in his lap. Obvious gangbanger guy. Tattoos. Big hoodie. Slouched in corner. Moderately hygienic homeless guy. 2 jackets. Really messed up shoes. Crazy hair. But perfect white teeth. Can't stop laughing to himself every few minutes. And white skater kids. Some with boards. Others with roller blades. One with BMX bike. I sat near the white kids. Suddenly. There's commotion at the front of the train. We're in the far back. Everyone peers down the aisle to see what's going on. Some tall, gangly black guy is running down the aisle, throwing haymakers seemingly at random every few seats. He's rapidly approaching our section. Now that's weird. But what happens next is the icing on this crazy cake. Moderately hygienic homeless guy fumbles around his jackets and retrieves not 1, but 2 switchblades. Snakes those fuckers out like Wolverine. Obvious gangbanger guy rears up to his full height. Unfolding to something like 6 feet 6 inches. Reaches into the front pocket of his hoodie. And suddenly the outline of a gun is clearly pressing me and the white kids. We just turtle up in the corner. Barricaded behind a phalanx of boards. But business just gives a tired sigh. Moves his coat to the seat next to him. This dude's briefcase is handcuffed to his wrist. He unlocks it. Opens it. Reaches in and just rests his free hand inside. Psycho haymaker guy makes it to our section. Stands bewildered for about 3 seconds. Frantically taking in this situation. Then turns around and runs right back where he came from. Punches another couple of people. Then gets off the train. I started carrying a knife after that. Edit. To everyone asking me what a third uncle is. Ask my third cousin. Edit 2. To everyone asking what line it was on. This was years ago. Before green and orange and all that. Plain Jane red line action. This was. Edit 3. To everyone asking what a haymaker is. It's a wild punch with no technique and all the puncher's strength behind it. Edit D. To the one person asking what a train is. Ask your mother. Edit 5. I doubt anyone will see this. But to everyone who says I'm dumb and should have gotten a gun instead of a knife. I was 17. Minimum age for concealed carry in Texas is 21. This needs to be a scene in a movie. And then up. The skaters. Gangbanger. Hygienic homeless Wolverine. And briefcase man all form a ragtag team to survive against some terrible foe. Sounds like something out of Attack the Block. I was in Rome walking down one of the main tourist streets, lots of high-end fashion stores. Mid-July. Lots of people, and right in the middle of the street there's a big scaffolding erected against the side of one of the stores. As me and my family walk under the scaffold, there's a big crowd of people ahead of us, so the pace is pretty slow. Out of nothing the people ahead of us start coughing. Nothing noticeable at first, but then it's louder and it's spreading further back. My brother is a little bit ahead of me and he's coughing too. I can suddenly feel dust or smoke or something obstructing my airway and I can barely breathe. The street looks fine. No building dust or smog or car exhausts, but around 30 people are coughing like we're in a burning building and pushing each other to get out onto the street. The panic was huge. I couldn't stop coughing and all I can think of is getting me and my family the hell out of there. People are shoving and shouting and I can feel the crowd swelling against my back. And then we make it onto the street and it stops. All 30 or so of us just stood on the street coughing and spluttering and trying to catch our breath in the midday sun. And that was it. After about a minute we all felt fine and everybody walked away in different directions. No lasting effects. Nothing. There was probably a really simple explanation, but it was one of the weirdest experiences I've had. Edit. It'd be cool if we could figure out what this actually was. I was in Rome between July 7th and 11th last year, so it was on one of those days. My memory of exactly where is a little sketchy, but I think it was either on or around Via de Condotti. Dude. That was one final twist away from being the start of a Fringe episode. Walter probably made the damn virus back in the day. I've seen this before. Peter. Yes, Walter? Would you be a dear and fetch me a scone? And then Peter comes back and Walter's dropping acid. December 24th, 2012, woke up at 3:30 am and traveled 150 miles. Met with 50 strangers all dressed as Santa Claus and snuck past a live security team whilst entering the abandoned national gas turbine establishment. Pies Talk, UK. Took this group photo whilst stood on top of the test chamber for Rolls-Royce Concorde engines. All in all, the strangest day of my life. Edit. For more clarity on how this situation arose, please see my reply post below. Huh. This really needs some context. 5th grade. I forgot the details because it was long ago and it was stupid kid drama. But basically my entire gym class hated my gym teachers. One day, some kid confronts one of the teachers. An actual fight breaks out between the two of them. The rest of the class just goes apeshit. Some join in on the fighting. So in the matter of seconds it's a bunch of 10 to 11-year-olds fighting two screaming adult females. And the rest of class takes it outside to the playground. Once outside, another group of students try to break some of the playing equipment. But everybody else for some unknown reason decided that marching around the perimeter of the playground while chanting was the best course of action. I just chilled out on top of the jungle gym outside while this was happening since I didn't want to get in trouble. So basically, inside the gym you have a group of students wailing on two teachers for some period of time. And outside a bunch of kids are marching in circles acting like they are doing some kind of freedom march. Once the dust settled, every student was required to go to a counseling. That was the end of that. I don't remember what happened to the teachers or the actual class after that. This happened back in the 1999 to 2000 school year at Meadow Creek Elementary in GA. If, by some giant coincidence, anybody who went there and sees this post can confirm. TL. DR version. Bunch of 5th graders revolt against gym teachers and ends up doing a freedom march on the playground. See, the mistake they made was not seizing the armory. To the jump ropes and soccer balls we go. The dodgeballs would have been even better. You obviously aren't well versed in elementary school uprisings. Dodgeballs are made to hit people without hurting much. Also, The extremely squishy nature makes them almost impossible to aim with a kick, limiting your firing options. Soccer balls are both accurate and much more solid and painful. They're the preferred weapon until you're in close enough range to strangle with the jump rope. You are correct. But all of this does not hold a candle to the most horrible of all weapons. I believe it was banned by the Geneva Convention. I am of course speaking of the dreaded four-wheeled scooter from gym class. So many pinched fingers.